Hey everyone, Austin here with Carlson Cards. No PSA reveal this week. PSA has been moving a little slower, I've noticed, so I think next week we should have a couple to go through, and I'm excited about that. But for today, I still want to get a video up for you guys. This is one that I hope is pretty helpful. It's pretty simple and straightforward, hopefully, but it's a topic that I've wanted to touch on for a while, which is how to track and document your sports card sales and purchases. Now, nothing in this video is intended to be financial or tax advice. Please absolutely keep that in mind. I am not an expert. I have no background in taxes and that sort of thing. But I can show you how I track my sales, and hopefully you find this helpful for yourself. The reason this is important is because, again, if you work with a CPA or a tax professional, they're going to ask you at the end of the year to say, hey, what have you sold? What have you bought stuff for? That sort of thing, so you can properly deduct the acceptable things. So if you're getting mileage on your vehicle, if you're driving to card shows, if you're buying cards and then selling them, just because you sold a card for $90 does not mean you pay tax on $90. You got to keep track of what you buy stuff for. And if you haven't been doing this already, do not panic, right? It's important to just start, right? We all just start somewhere, but that's why I hope me sharing this here today can be helpful for all of you. So let's get started. I'll show you guys what I do, and again, hopefully you find some of this helpful. So I'll post this spreadsheet in the description of the video in case you find it helpful. I left some examples in here for both deductions and for my inventory sheet. So these are stuff that I may have made up prices, but you get an idea of how I track this. So number one thing that I do every time, typically at the end of the month, when I buy cards on eBay, I'll go back and just check what did I purchase cards for and input them into my spreadsheet. So I just really adamantly keep track of what I pay for stuff so that I mentioned already, we can deduct what we paid as a cost of inventory or your cost of goods. Again, not a tax professional, but this is the way that I've done it. And if you track this, it's going to help yourself at the end of the year or the tax professional that you end up working with. I'll just quick step through the columns as well. So I do player name. This is just the way I've enjoyed and found it easiest to do it. So I can track and sort by different players. I do the card type. So typically I'll throw in like the year, maybe the set, the card number, that sort of thing. I kind of just try my best. If you're missing info, that's fine as long as you can remember which card this was. And then I put the quantity because, right, sometimes you're going to buy cards that are 3 or 4 and you have a different cost of good that's going to be split between 3 cards. And then I have the buy date and the source, right? So I just want to be adamantly sure that I remember where I bought it from so that hypothetically, if you did get asked or, somebody was like, hey, where did you get this from? I just always assume it'd be important and good to document the date, not only, but where it was purchased from. And then the cost of goods, which is what you pay for the item, that I keep track of here. And that's obviously including shipping, sales tax, that sort of thing, whatever you paid to get the card in hand. Next, I have columns that are important for grading. So I have a grading order column. This is where I personally like to track by order. So I'll copy the order number and put it in here. And I put PSA in front just in case you grade with different companies. You want to track SGC separately. Then I have grading fees. So by doing this, I go to the cost that I pay, let's say PSA after I grade my cards. I divide by the number of cards. So if I end up paying $1,000 and I have 100 cards, obviously be $10 a card. That's just the way I do this. Then I do track the grade, especially let's say you have multiple that sell, and you want to make sure you're kind of throwing the right one on here. I just distinguish by grade as well. Or even if you want to pull some data out of this, it's kind of interesting just to see what has sold the best. Now we get to the sales columns, which is also important. There are some here that I didn't sell, again, just for example. But you see I have like certain cards here that I graded but maybe didn't sell yet. And then I have a bunch that I did grade and I did sell. So I mark that here in column J, K through P basically. So the inputs here are your sale date. So again, let's say at the end of the week or when I ship, I'll go look through my eBay sales and I have I like to have the window open where I bought my shipping so I can easily see what the shipping labels cost. And I'll pull up on my phone and go to the payment spot on eBay. So you can click on an item you sold. It'll show you the total cost. It'll show you the fees. And then again, your shipping will come from the shipping labels that you bought. I'll show an example here just quick of what this looks like from your computer. So if you go to your seller profile and hit payments, you can see here just an example card. You can see your amount, which was your total cost, not counting sales tax, which again is important because you're not taking in the sales tax. eBay remits that for you. And the fees, which is your seller fees. So these would go in, your total sale price would go in column L, and then the fees would go in column M. And then you would include your shipping costs as well, because again, that's a cost you're paying that takes away from your profit, right? So at the end of the year, when you're talking to your tax professional, they're going to ask all these different things. So it's good to keep track of everything. If you aren't yet working with a CPA or tax professional, but you'd like to and it's been on your mind, a lot of them will give free consultations. So if you Google, CPA near me, a lot of them will hop on a call or meet with you for 20 or 30 minutes, and you can kind of go through maybe what you're doing as a business and then give you tips, kind of maybe, a lot of stuff that I can't cover because I don't fully understand it. But I just want to throw that out a note because I did that. It was very helpful. I also got to meet the person and understand that, okay, they would be good to work with. And that's who I've filed taxes with every year since. There's two other columns here. So we do have sale price and profit. Sale price is just your total. So I just track these. You can really change these columns if you want, but I like knowing what column L minus M minus N are. So that would be like column L, your sale price here, minus your fees, minus your shipping. That would be kind of my total sale price minus the, fees again. And then your profit is if you also subtract column F and H from this one here. So column F is your cost of goods, what you bought the card for. Column H is your grading fees. So this is important, again, just to really gauge, okay, when we come in here, not for tax purposes, but just for tracking and really understanding what's doing well for you, you can really see what has done well, right? So if I scroll and I see, okay, this one has a, negative almost $14 profit, what went wrong here? Let's take a look. And you can see, right, it was a Pippin refractor I bought for $12, which is, not cheap. It's some money. I graded 15, got an 8, which is probably the reason I didn't do well. And then ended up selling on eBay for $22.50, right? So after fees and everything, I ended up losing $14. So it's good to keep this in mind and really learn every time you sell things just to track over time and improve yourself. Now, one other tab on this, again, I'm just going to share. Again, I'm not an expert on taxes, but I'm just showing this as an example of tracking purchases and items and, things that are useful and needed for your business. It's going to be up to the person you work with or, again, however you file your taxes, really understand if they're applicable. But I would highly recommend just document anything that you think might possibly be deductible because you can come back and check it at the end of the year and really gauge, maybe some of the things ended up not being useful, but it's good that you documented it. So a few examples here, right? You have like your penny sleeves. I just bought supplies on eBay, so I'd throw the date in, the amount, and then where I got it. I like to try to keep receipts, so I'll have a folder on my computer for like, let's say virtual receipt. Again, it's just a screenshot of maybe the purchase here. I don't know if that's really necessary, but it's what I've done. The other thing, you might be setting up at card shows, good to keep track of what you buy them for. Even if it's cash, you don't have a receipt. Again, my point I was sharing, just keep track of it. Ask your tax professional if you can still deduct it. It's worth asking about. And as long as you're tracking, you're going to have the dates and locations and that sort of thing. The other thing is like, right, if you're going to big shows and paying tickets to get in the door. Another example, and like this one, for example, I put method again, so I paid with a credit card. I have a virtual receipt through that, so just marking it here. And then finally, on the right, I have a spot for mileage. This is just what I track personally. I know you really, there's lots of different ways to do this, but this is what I've tracked. I just put the date, what it was, like where was I going, and then the address, and then the mileage round trip from my home, right, where I run the business. And I also track a purpose just in case maybe I forget or again, a question comes up. This sheet, like I said, is not perfect, but this is the way I've done it and I found to be helpful, and it's really better than nothing. So I hope some of this is helpful to you guys, and I really appreciate you joining. And don't forget, in the description, I'll have a link to this. So I hope you guys enjoy, and again, I hope this was helpful to you.